Welcome to 2009 JBDF US Debate Exchange. Well, I debate, therefore I am. It's a famous remark made by a French philosopher and a debater, René Descartes. And today I'm MC, therefore I am here to speak, here and speaking to you, okay? And my name is Seno Kazuhiko, or if you prefer in American way, Kazuhiko Seno. I'm an advisor, common in Japanese, to Japan Business People Debate Federation. Is that right? JBDF, Japan Business People Debate Federation. Okay, I'm an advisor. Okay, and this event is held once in 2 years, and this would be the 10th or 12th or 15th time to welcome American debaters to Japan and to the JBDF activity. And today, I'd like to explain the schedule to you. Today, we have a demonstration debate between the American debaters and the Japanese debaters who represent JBDF. Okay, and after a brief, intermission, we'd like to welcome a lecture by Professor Yano. And after that, as usual, we have a reflection hansekai, or a drinking party in English, in Shinjuku. And I hope many of you will join us to congratulate the success of this event. Okay. First of all, I'd like to have a word from Mr. President of JBDF, please.
I'm Sakurai. I serve as the president of JBDF, Japan Business People Debate Federation. On behalf of JBDF, I'd like to extend our hearty welcome to this special event, Japan-US Exchange Debate. And our special welcome, of course, goes to American debaters, 3 gentlemen here, who came all the way from the United States. And despite the increasing fear of influenza pandemic, with their courage and with their passion to debate, this event is possible. I really appreciate it for your cooperation. And as Mr. Seno has explained to you, we have long history of this event, Japan-US Exchange Debate. And I myself debated against American teams 3 times in the past. Result? Don't ask. American debaters have always been nice guys and very skillful in debate, of course, and eloquent and smart, and means to the opponents. And I was knocked out 3 times in a row. And I even fainted during the cross-examination. So this time, in order not to get defeated, I made some plan. 1, to switch official language into Japanese. But you might blame after going back to the States. Oh, it's another Japanese unfair business practice. That's not the reputation we want. So we go straight. So instead of I debate, I assign the top debaters of Japan, JBDF. They are Mr. Ichimura and Mr. Ueno. They really are the legendary debaters of Japan. And I am sure we have some chances to win. Well, but I'm not really sure about the victory 100%, because We are debating against the top debaters representing the United States of America. They are the best and brightest debaters from representing the country of Obama. So we made special rule that we will not make decision. This is just an exhibition match, friendly exchange, right? Is that fair?
Absolutely.
Great. And many of you coming here the first time to the JBDF activities, and here with you some actually paper, the brochure of JBDF, which describes our activities, and please read it for the details. And underneath, there is a description about the initiation fee and annual due. And since almost half a year has passed, so we have special discount on annual due. Instead of 5,000 yen, if you join us now, we offer 2,500 yen for
It's a
annual
sale.
due.
It's a sale.
What a bargain. And if you're interested in joining us, of course, you can come and see our activities. And if you want to pay now, that's more than welcome. And we have a reliable guy sitting over there, Mr. Inada. Please, would you please stand up? He's a treasurer of JBDF. He's really reliable. So please talk to him about the activities and about how to pay. And you can do that after this event or even during the drinking party. But make sure you talk to him before he gets drunk. He is not reliable any longer. Well, joking aside, we are having really exciting match. The historic debate between the American top debaters and legendary debaters representing JBDF. Please sit back and relax and enjoy. Thank you very much.
Okay, I hope the two legendary debaters of Japan will not be a history. Okay. Okay, next of all, I'd like to have self-introduction from debaters and the coach. And the first pro from the affirmative, please. Would you make introduce yourself?
Yeah. Hi everybody, my name is Tony Liao. I am currently the debater at Cornell University in New York, and I did my undergraduate at the University of Southern California where I debated. And this will be my 10th year of debate, so not quite as much as the legendary Japanese team. But I'm really grateful for the opportunity for JBDF and also JDA to have this opportunity to share debate and have this exhibition, and so everyone can see how this activity works, and to encourage everyone to join if they aren't already, and to continue, because debate really is truly valuable and is the reason I am here today. So thank you very much for the opportunity.
My name is Chris Gerard. I just recently graduated Truman State University in Kirksville, Missouri. I would like to thank everyone for the amazing hospitality we've experienced. It has been a wonderful time thus far, and I'm certainly very, very happy to be able to be a part of this event, to visit Tokyo and other parts of Japan and really promote debate. I couldn't echo Tony's comments enough how much debate has meant to me and how much it's shaped the way I think and the way I act, and how important it's been to, I think, everyone in this community. So if you are on the edge, I would absolutely encourage you to look more into it. Thank you.
Thank you. And the Japanese debaters?
Okay, good afternoon everyone. My name is Hiroyasu Ichimura. Today I'm in charge of first negative constructive speech and first negative rebuttal speech. To be honest, I'm very nervous now because it's very first time to debate in front of such a big audiences. However, at the same time, I'm very happy because the president of JBDF, Mr. Sakurai, And our coach, Mr. Seno, and other member of JBDF assigned me to be one of the today's debater. And also, I really appreciate two top American debaters, Mr. Yano and Mr. Gerald, and Professor Yano, for coming all the way to Japan and especially having time to debate with us today. I joined JBDF 7 years ago. Since then, the practicing debate became a very important part of my life. Every month, I enjoy participating debate session, always followed by drinking session. And of course, throughout the course of these two sessions, the critical argument always continues until the logic deteriorates due to too much consumption. As such, we nurture critical thinking. However, today I hope that all audiences are not critical on my debate skill and English skill. Please enjoy this debate. Thank you.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Shigeo Ueno. While I am running a small printing company in the eastern part of Tokyo. As you know, the business is in very severe condition right now. But because, well, Mr. Sakurai asked to debate here, well, it's very honorable. It's my honor to me to debate here. So I accepted his request. And I'd like to thank all of the members of JBDF as well as the United States debaters and coach for coming to this event. And today, well, I would like to do my very best in debating. Well, and the people who come here the first time here to watch debate, I'd like to say that debating is a very good way of learning English. Well, I started debating about 25 years ago, and I learned most of my English through debating without learning abroad. So, well, please join us if you are interested in debating, watching this event. Thank you.
Hello everyone, I'm Steve Yano. I'm a professor of rhetoric at St. John's University in New York City, and I'm also the director of debate there, which means I'm a professional coach. And I'm very honored to be able to address you today, and I look forward to whatever questions you have about the debate. And I look forward to speaking with you about debate in just a little while, but we'll let them speak first because they're much more skilled than I am. But don't let them know that.
And after the debate round, Professor Yano will make a brief comment about the round, and after some intermission, he will give us a lecture titled Defending Debate, which let us know the importance of debating, okay? And please expect that. Okay, you have this sheet, right? This brochure tells you the format of today's debate. Each debater will make us two speeches, one constructive speech and one rebuttal speech. And some words, speech, end with I. I guess it's the Italian form of the word speech. And please omit the I at the end. Okay. And the title of today's debate is, as you can see on the brochure, Resolve that Japan should introduce work sharing. 日本はワークシェアリング制度を導入すべきである。Okay? And as a topic, on the affirmative side, we have the American debaters, and the negative, the representative of JBDF. And okay, I know we are welcoming some non-debaters to this event, so I will give you play-by-play or speech-by-speech running commentary in between the speeches with the common sense, because I'm a common advisor, okay? In Japanese or in Navajo, if time allows. Okay. Okay, let's start the debate round. And the timekeeper, are you ready? She will keep time, okay? And of course you can count time by yourself. Okay.
Well, I wanted to say one more quick word before we actually start the debate. There are some very specific people and organizations that I think all of the Americans would like to thank. We're very, very happy for the invitation to come here and all the organizational efforts by the JDA and absolutely their corporate sponsors, G-Tech for Students and Benesse. We're very grateful for the negative team, Mr. Ichimura and Mr. Ueno. We're very happy to have met and was helped by the advisor to JBDF, Mr. Seno, and absolutely like to thank Mr. Sakurai and all the JBDF for putting this on. So let's go into the debate now. Everybody ready? All right. I wanted to start with a quick overview. What Tony and I think today's debate round is going to come down to is that there are many workers right now who are at risk to lose their jobs and that there are many Japanese workers who are overworked. We think that this is very bad and that work sharing is the solution, that it will prevent unemployment and it will create more jobs. Thus, we're happy to stand in the affirmation of the resolution that Japan should introduce work sharing. We have a couple contentions to help make this point clear. The very first contention is that there is disparity in current labor allocation. For subpoint A, we would argue, in the midst of unprecedented recession, as many as 1.7 million people are on the verge of unemployment. From GG.com in 2008, Daiwa Institute of Research disclosed the report that 1.7 million workers, including non-regular workers, can possibly be fired between November and June 2009 as a result of the sharp drop of the economy in the midst of this financial crisis. For subpoint B, we would argue that, on the other hand, 8 million workers are suffering from long working hours. From Kazumasa Ono in 2008, out of the some 60 million workforce in Japan, 1 in 8 work for more than 60 hours a week, and 1 of 4 works less than 35 hours a week, according to the data. The statistics suggest that the practice of long working hours does not spread uniformly. The next point, what we'd like to suggest here as an underview, is that it shows that even in all of this, there are some people who work much too hard and have very high stress levels, and there are some people who are very stressed about losing their jobs. In contention 2, we would say that such disparity is a serious problem. The A card is that the suicide caused by excessive work amounts to thousands of cases each year, according to the Kawahito law firm. If we analyze the statistics released by Tokyo Metropolitan Police, we can estimate that every year at least thousands of people are killing themselves due to the excessive work and stress. Also, we would say that losing a breadwinner is a tragedy involving the entire family, and it is also a great societal loss. From the Mainichi newspaper in 2002, forgive my pronunciations for some of your words. The loss of lifetime earnings of those who commit suicide in Japan amounts to 2.5 trillion yen a year. The suicide brings about the loss of 0.6 trillion yen in consumption, pressing down GDP by 1.3 trillion yen, according to the estimate released by Suicide Prevention Conference held at the Ministry of Health, Welfare, and Labor on the 7th. Thus, we offer the plan as a possible solution to these problems. In order to solve the unemployment and long working hours, we propose Plank 1. Immediately declare the introduction of work sharing and implement the following measures now. Plank 2. Reduce the legal hours by 5% or 38 hours a week. Plank 3. Reduce companies' payroll by 5%. Plank 4. Reduce by 5% the salary. The reduced 5% salary is wholly compensated by the government as a work share incentive. Plank 7. Plank 6. 5. Counting. Punish the employers severely for unpaid work by increasing inspectors tenfold. Thus, contention 3 is the reasons why we think this will work. The very first is that the reduction of working hours and payroll by 5%, as mentioned in Plank 2 and 3, can prevent unemployment. These planks are based on the work of Professor Higuchi's model and will generate 2.5 million jobs each year. From the Nikkei in 2001. Authors Professor Higuchi and his colleague put employment formats into the groups of general workers and part-time workers and analyzed how the reduction of working hours would affect the volume of employment. When the working hours of general workers is reduced by 5% and the monthly salary is correspondingly reduced by 5%, it will generate 168,000 jobs for general workers and 460,000 jobs for part-time workers, and the overall employment will increase by 2.5 million. Therefore, we can save all of the jobs we were talking in subpoint 1, and we could also avoid the harms of these companies going under as the government helps compensate. Thank you.
Okay. So I'd like to welcome cross-examination by the negative side. 3 minutes.
I'd like to confirm the plan first. Could you repeat the plan again?
Absolutely. There are 5 planks of the plan. The first is to immediately declare the introduction of work sharing and implement the following measures. The second is to reduce the legal hours by 5% or 38 hours a week. The third is to reduce companies' payroll by 5%.
Is this in the order of the government?
The government would mandate these issues, and also it would compensate these businesses by reducing their 5% as an incentive.
How much will it be?
It would matter on each company. Every single corporation has a different amount of payroll, and they would reduce it by 5%.
Each company will introduce work sharing system.
They will be incentivized to do so with government compensation.
Okay, the companies are not supposed to introduce work sharing.
No.
Okay, then how many companies in Japan will introduce work sharing through this incentive?
We would expect that because a couple companies are already doing it now, such as Fujitsu, as well as all of the recent agreements between labor leaders, business leaders, and governmental leaders, that many corporations would want to do this.
Okay, they are doing without incentives.
Only a small few, but so many are recognizing the need to move over.
Okay, so do you have specific number of, or specific number how many companies will introduce the system with this plan?
Unfortunately not, because it hasn't been implemented yet.
Okay. And you said in contention 3, 2.5 million jobs will be created.
Per Professor Higuchi's model, we expect that to be true.
Okay, but this is just a, how should I say? If your plan will make the company introduce this system, that number will be achieved.
We expect so.
Okay. And go back to contention 1. You said many regular workers are suffering from overtime work.
Yes, almost 8 million.
Almost 8 million. May I ask you why?
The card doesn't go into specifics, but I would imagine that these individuals they work for over 60 hours a week, and I imagine that's very taxing on themselves and their families and the people around them.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. 1 minute preparation time here. 今ですね、工程側の第一律論が終わりました。コンテンションと言っていたのは、論点という意味でですね、ディベートでは使っております。3つの論点からなっていて、コンテンション1、現状の話ですね。現状では問題が2点あるというふうに話しております。A、B は分かれてましたけれども、A の方ではですね、不況のおかげで、170万人が失業の危機にあると。で逆に B の方では、1600万人がですね、むしろ、すごくですね、長時間、勤務をしているということですね。で、コンテンションという論点2では、それは非常に深刻なんだということで、例えば過労死なんかの問題で言いますと、すみません。例えばオーバーワークなんかの問題で言いますと、ストレスなんかが溜まってですね、警察庁の発表で、それで自殺なんかしている、過労死している、自殺している人がいると。で、それは非常に家族にとっても深刻であると。で、プランでですね、ワークシェアリングをすぐに導入して、で、法定時間、38時間まで1週間に働けるようにしてですね、 で、会社が 5% 給料をカットして、そのカットされた 5% は政府が会社に補填すると。で、それに違反した場合には罰則もあるよなんていうプランが提示されていました。論点の3番目では問題の解決性ということで、樋口教授によりますと、プランをワークシェアリング実行しますとですね、250万人の仕事が生まれるということで問題の解決になるんだという話をしていました。これから否定側から第一律論が行われます。Okay, I'd like to welcome the first negative constructive speech. 5 minutes, please.
Debate, decline in international competitiveness. A, the plan decreased productivity. Reason 1, the plan increased labor cost. Truman F. Gooley, professor of economics at Yale University, 2002. 4, since work sharing preserved benefits, it increased hourly cost. For this reason, work sharing is not an attractive for employers unless downtime is so temporary, and they wish to retain high-skilled workers who might leave if laid off and hard to be replaced. Unquote. In fact, work sharing increased labor costs in Netherlands. Colonel von Wolfram, professor of University of Amsterdam, 2002. Quote, companies were surprised that in Netherlands, labor costs eventually went up. For example, cost of employing 2 part-time or dispatched workers came out high in the end. Companies do not publicly say, but they regret introduction of work sharing, unquote. Reason 2, the plan decreased morale. In addition to increase in labor costs, the plan decreases morale. Truman Gooley, professor of economics at Yale University, 2009, quote, but work sharing has a disadvantage that it can hurt workers' morale by reducing incomes. The impact of reduced income is not great when temporary, but they can have a serious effect on morale and productivity if prolonged. In Canada, empirically, work sharing decreased productivity. Paul Renoir, professor at HEC Montreal, 2001, quote, this paper is the first to examine empirically how work sharing influences workers' productivity using a unique data set from the large Canadian firm. This firm has adopted the work sharing scheme for 1 year, which allows us to introduce a natural experiment approach of comparing workers' productivity before and after the implementation of work sharing. We find that work sharing has led to a significant decrease in labor productivity, unquote. The impact of decrease in productivity. 3.1, decrease in productivity is a especially serious problem for small and middle-sized companies. Organization for Small and Medium Enterprise and Regional Innovation, Corporate Bankruptcy Annual Report, September 2003, quote, this decrease in productivity was often improving small and medium companies' finance, which becomes a hotbed for increased number of bankruptcies, unquote. 3.2, companies lose competition among domestic or overseas companies who do not introduce work sharing. Yojiro Aizawa, a researcher at Fujitsu Research Institute, April 2002, quote, in general, companies essentially try to increase productivity and decrease labor costs to pursue benefit. However, emergency type or maintain employment type work sharing abandon such efforts, including labor saving and increasing efficiency with machine or IT information technology. Accordingly, work sharing has a fundamental problem that companies lose chance to increase their competitiveness. While companies abandon effort to increase productivity, such as reducing workforce, their competitiveness decreases in comparison with other domestic or overseas companies without work sharing, unquote. After losing competition, many companies will go bankrupt. It is obvious. And this impact is not only for export-oriented companies, but also for all Japanese companies. Since Japanese economy becomes more and more dependent on export, losing competitiveness results in more bankruptcy and unemployment. International Herald Tribune, April 1st, Hiroko Tabuchi, exports seen as the only hope as domestic population shrinks, ages, and saves. Quote, with demand slipping at home because of aging and shrinking population, Japanese companies are caught in the bind. They must aggressively increase foreign sales despite the global downturn. While policymakers call for a renewed focus on stimulating domestic demand, even companies that once catered almost exclusively to Japanese consumers are yoking themselves more tightly to overseas market. Japanese companies themselves just don't see a future in domestic market, said Yasuo Yamamoto, senior economist at Mizuho Research the market is almost, that makes it almost impossible for Japan to reduce its export dependence, unquote. Japanese economy is expected to be recovered from the recession naturally. However, if the plan was introduced, it would cause more bankruptcy and unemployment. Therefore, the negative side strongly opposes this resolution. Thank you.
Okay, the debater is cross-examined by one of the affirmative speakers.
Yeah. I'd like to look at your third argument here, that the decrease of productivity uniquely hurts small and medium-sized businesses.
Yes.
Could you explain why that is? Because it seems like if productivity decreased, it would happen all over the board.
Well, this evidence says that the decrease in productivity postpones improving, especially small and medium-sized companies. Finance, which becomes a hotbed for increased number of bankruptcies. So I think this evidence says that productivity is very critical, especially in the middle-sized or small-sized companies.
Okay. How about your fourth argument, how losing to the competition means that you won't be able to export as well? In a world where there are so many areas for incredibly cheap labor, why is Japan uniquely at danger from being damaged by decreased export?
Well, this evidence says that since this resolution adopted only in Japan, right?
Mm-hmm.
So as you said, even now, the China or other Asian market offer very cheap labor market. Then, if this plan was introduced, the finance of many small and middle-sized companies worsen. Therefore, we expect more bankruptcy in those companies.
Isn't it the case, though, that because China can already sell it so cheaply and because so many other companies can sell their products so cheaply because of their workforce, they can pay so little, shouldn't your impacts already be occurring? Shouldn't Japan already be in such danger?
I think at least affirmative cannot guarantee that China or other Asian countries adopt this work sharing. So the introducing plan is make this gap much bigger.
I'd like to go to your top point now, or your second point about morale.
Yes.
Do you think that people would have a higher morale if they had at least a part-time job, or do you think they would have a lower morale if they were totally unemployed? It seems like if everyone has a piece of the pie, then there would be relatively high morality, other than some people just being very upset from being unemployed.
Okay, I think that at least your plan implemented a wage cut, 5% wage cut. And this wage cut caused a decrease in morale. This evidence, our argument is such.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. We have 1 minute preparation time. Okay. 今ですね、否定側から、ディスアドバンテージ、デメリットですね、公的なプランを取った時のデメリットが、提示されたわけです。で、国際競争力の低下と、いうことでしたけれども、A、B、と分かれていまして、A のところではですね、なぜそれが起こるかと、2点ありました。A のところでは、ね、全般的に生産性が低下すると言ってましたけれども、その理由が2つあると。1つ目がレーバーコストが上がるから、労働コスト、あるいは人件費ですかね、こういうものが公的なプランによって上がるからと。2点目ではモラルと言ってましたけれども、士気とかやる気ですね、賃金カットされるので、やる気とかがそがれて、これは非常に長く続いてしまうもので、実際に外国の例なんかでそういうのがあったような話ありました。で、B のところではですね、そうすると何が起こるかということで、インパクトとディベートで言ってましたけれども、まずは生産性の低下というのは、中小企業に非常に深刻な害をもたらすんだ、倒産するかもしれない話をしてました。2点目として、国内、国外のですね、ワークシェアリングを行っていない企業と、競争しなきゃいけないので、これまたそのワークシェアリングを導入した企業にとって悪くなって、倒産なんかになるんだという話をしていました。 これから肯定化の第二律論ですので、基本的にはこのデメリットにですね、反論をするというのが中心になると思われます。Okay. And I'd like to welcome the second affirmative constructive speech. Okay.
Thanks to Mr. Ichimura for his comments, and I would like to address some of the points brought up by the negative team. The first thing is that the system is broken. Layoffs are coming if we don't change anything. And so layoffs will always be worse than any of the reasons that they say work sharing may be bad. Work sharing is the only way to prevent the layoffs that are going to happen that will already decrease productivity, that will already decrease morale, that will already decrease competitiveness, and make the impacts of overwork and stress on the Japanese workforce even greater than what it already is. When people get laid off, workers that are at the company lose morale because they worry about their jobs, and they have to work even harder to keep their jobs, and their productivity declines because their home life isn't secure, they're nervous, they're worried, and all of the bad things that happen that the negative says will happen right now if we don't implement our plan. This is from the Japan Times in 2009. Work sharing is the latest buzzword in Japan Inc. Proponents say it's a good way to avoid American-style layoffs in a society that has long fostered lifetime employment. Toyota, Mazda, Toshiba, Fujitsu have all taken up some kind of work sharing. Nissan Motor Company and others are considering it. The practice is winning powerful supporters, including Fijori Mitai, head of the Japan Business Federation. There is strong support for work sharing by all these companies for the reason that it will prevent layoffs amongst the Japanese workforce, which is so critical to preserving the strength and competitiveness of Japanese companies. And the other thing is that the reason that they support this is because they want to support this. They want to implement work sharing, but they need the help of the government. And that is where the affirmative plan comes in and helps these businesses implement work sharing in a way that is helpful and productive. And so let us address some of the opposition arguments. The first is that they say that it will decrease productivity, but it will actually increase productivity because it will create more jobs, and people who are currently unemployed will have a higher incentive to work harder at the part-time jobs that they do have. And also, overwork, as it already exists in the status quo, and layoffs are decreasing the productivity, so there's only a chance that work sharing can increase this. The other thing is that they say that the income loss will decrease productivity and decrease morale. But plank 3 of the affirmative plan is that the government will compensate for the income loss and compensate for the benefits so this does not occur. The government will shoulder some of the burden to make it easier for businesses to implement work sharing in a way that is both beneficial for their long-term employees and also create new jobs to bring in new employees. And so these concerns of decreased productivity and morale don't apply to the affirmative plan. The other issue is that they say that it will decrease productivity and competitiveness, but we submit that not only will it increase productivity at the workforce, the time off that people have can be put into new types of training and new types of education to increase the skills that they might have to work and further benefit their business. So let's say I work at Fujitsu and I decide to take a 3-month period of time where my wage might be a little less, but I can take that time to spend with my family and to get more education and get more training. So when I come back to my job, I will be even more valuable to my company. And work sharing allows this kind of new education, particularly in high-tech industries, in order to become more internationally competitive. And work sharing is what allows for this. This is from the Japan Times. Fujitsu plans to have some 5,000 employees take leave from work for periods ranging from a few months to a year as part of a work sharing plan. Workers put on temporary leave will have their pay cut by about 40%. Employees will be allowed to choose the length of their breaks, which the company hopes will be used to undergo training and obtain qualifications useful for work. Surplus workers will then perform the work done by workers who take the leave. Fujitsu will adopt the Envision system only at times of a slump in the semiconductor market. And so work sharing not only allows layoffs not to happen and allows new jobs to be created, it actually improves competitiveness from existing employees that work at a company so they can get new training, new education to come back and be even more productive at the jobs that they do have. And so it is for these reasons we stand in affirmative of the resolution. Thank you.
Okay, cross-examination by the negative side, please.
Okay. First of all, your basic stance is layoff is inferior to work sharing, right?
Layoffs are coming right now.
Okay.
Our evidence indicates that businesses will have to lay people off with the current system that they have.
Even now, the productivity is decreasing, right? In the argument.
The productivity is decreasing right now because of the long hours that people have to work and some of the layoffs that have already happened.
Okay, and you say that on the moral issue, since in your plan, the wage decrease is compensated by government,
Yes.
so it's not this won't happen, right? And the next, we can exploit the extra free time to train, some kind of training, right?
Yes.
And don't you think this type of training can be provided by a company?
If you are working 60 to 80 hours a week, having additional training on top of that won't be useful and you won't be as effective at learning those new skills. It requires a lot of time off to have new education, particularly in the high-tech fields where the Japanese businesses thrive in, that you need specialized education to keep up with the changing markets and the changing world.
Okay, so the basic stance is plan don't decrease productivity.
Absolutely not. It will increase productivity both in the new workers that come in because they will be highly motivated to work very hard at their job because they understand what it means to be unemployed. So they will now have a job and they will work very hard at that. And then existing workers will take the time to get new training to become more productive when they return to work.
The labor cost increase is also covered by government subsidies?
Yes, the government would subsidize it. And see, the reason that work sharing doesn't always happen right now is because companies are afraid to shoulder some of these extra burdens of benefits to new employees. But if the government will step in and subsidize those, then there's no reason that companies will not adopt a work sharing program.
Okay. And actually, those kind of program already introduced in some company, right?
Our evidence indicates that some companies are taking the initiative on their own, but it would be made much, much easier and they would be more inclined to do so if the government would step in and help a little bit.
Okay. And plan also won't decrease morale, right?
No, absolutely not, because it will relieve some of the stress that they have from overwork, and that will automatically increase morale. And also because the wage, and there would be no wage deduction because the government would pay for that difference.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. 1 minute preparation time. 今ですね、肯定側の第二立論が行われて、基本的にデメリットの反論が多かったですけれども、最初にですね、まずレイオフ、首切りというのがですね、これからやってくるんだというのがもともと肯定側の主張じゃないかと、否定側の言っているのはデメリットというのは、今現状で起こっているような問題なんだよと、それを解決するのがプランなんだという話でしたね。で、いくつか議論がありましたけれども、プランはむしろ生産性を上げるんだと。失業しちゃう人たちに職を与えて、あげたりするんだから、むしろやる気が上がるんじゃないか。で、政府がちゃんと補填をするから、士気も下がらないんだとかですね、あとは、ワークシェアリングによって、新たに生まれたようなですね、その休みの期間、デイオフはですね、これはトレーニングとか、あるいは今後の教育のために使われるから、むしろそれは会社にとっても本人にとっても非常にいいんだということですね。で、実際に富士通なんかではそういうようなことをやっているんだなんていう話でした。これからですね、否定側の第二立論が行われますが、否定側の第二立論はですね、今までメリットの方はまだ何も議論がありませんので、メリットの方に関してですね、議論が行われるものだと思います。Okay. And I'd like to welcome the second negative constructive speech. 5 minutes, please.
Okay, I'd like to talk about the case side, about the merits. First of all, they said that plan will compensate the companies, but they never showed us how many companies will accept that that incentives and introduce work sharing. Well, the cards on the about the benefit of work sharing just says they will create jobs. They never said the companies will accept work sharing through incentives. That's their burden to prove. Second argument is that to the extent the company introduces work sharing, the government spending will increase. The Japanese governments are under very severe condition of deficit, and to the extent the government spending increases, the government are facing the risk of bankruptcy. That's more severe situation to the Japanese people because they will lose the social security, social insurances, other costs to protect people's life. So this can be another benefit, another demerit. Third, they said overworking. The people are overworking, but it's just one time during the recession. If we recover from the recession, we can increase the workers, and the overtime workers will decrease. The fourth, work sharing has no impact, has no effect on employment. Ariel Kaptein, Institute for the Study of Labor, said in 2000, quote, "We have considered both the theoretical and the empirical case for work sharing as a policy to reduce unemployment or promote employment. The results from the literature are non-conclusive as to the efficacy of work sharing as a means to reduce unemployment. Our empirical analysis does not provide any ground for the proposition that work sharing would reduce unemployment," unquote. This analysis is done about the OECD, 13 OECD countries. And so the Kaptein concluded in 2000, quote, "But if one wants to increase employment, other measures are probably much more effective than work sharing," unquote. And fifth argument is layoffs are better. Bully said in 2002, "Pay cut is usually not viewed as a good alternative for layoff. Layoffs do harm than pay cut to the morale of employees who remain. Layoffs are made to save or remove unneeded workers. Because layoffs eliminate fixed employment costs along with wage or salary expense, pay cut normally would have to be impossibly large to save as much as moderately large layoff," unquote. And sixth, thanks to layoffs, the Japanese economy already shows a sign of recovery. Reuters, May 29 this year. But in terms of production side, Japanese economy begins to show the sign of V-shaped recovery, which was not expected by many economists and market players, unquote. And seven, so I'd like to present one counter policy. They spend money on company, we spend money on unemployed people. Company can do layoffs as the present system does, and the layoff people are subsidized by the government, by the funding of the affirmative plan says. This is better because the layoffs will make the company to move quickly against recession, and this will contribute to the Japanese company to recover from the recession very quickly. And eighth, I'd like to present one turnaround that work sharing failed in Japan, and it will rather make unstable people's life. Takenobu said in 2009, quote, "Last time, labor and management made agreement in the middle of work sharing boom, and it resulted in promotion of pay cut. Moreover, it even increased proportion of non-regular workers through various employment type work sharing," unquote. Japanese company introduced work sharing in 2002, and it resulted in rather increasing proportion of non-regular workers, and this made workers' life more unstable. That's all. Thank you.
Okay, cross-examination.
Okay.
Leon-san, your first argument is that companies won't accept work sharing, is that right?
I did not say that. It is a burden of the affirmative to prove that how many companies will introduce work sharing if the incentives are introduced.
If we read evidence from the head of the Japan Business Federation that says they strongly support work sharing, and there are a number of companies that have already started, do we meet that burden?
Yeah, I think so. You're right.
Your second point is that the government is spending a lot of money on Social Security, is that right?
Right.
Why do they spend money on Social Security? Isn't it because people are unemployed?
No, you subsidize companies. So you subsidize the company by the government funding.
Okay, so let me ask you a question about your counterplan then. If you say companies can lay people off, and then the government will pay for the people who have laid off and give them benefits, won't that increase government spending a lot?
Yes, right. So if your subsidy does not harm, no, I said, how should I say? At the level of government spending, my counter policy is the same as the fairness plan, but at least the layoff policy makes company move faster than the work sharing policy. So it is better for the company.
If we increase the number of people that are employed, won't the government have to spend less in Social Security?
To the extent the employment increases, the money you have to spend increases. Isn't that correct?
Well, if we employ more people and they become self-sufficient, then the government has to spend less to support them. Is that not right? Because
you have to support the 5% salary.
Which would be less than however much the government is paying in Social Security, though.
No, I'm not saying only about Social Security. I'm talking about the unemployed. Well, we will subsidize the layoff people.
How many people do you say the companies will have to lay off?
I have no idea, to the extent you say.
Won't that really make things unstable at a company if workers don't know when they're going to be laid off, and companies can fire people that have lifetime employment?
If the Japanese
they have
company,
to pay them severance packages.
If the Japanese company recovers quickly, the Japanese company will increase employment.
By laying people off?
No. Yeah, right. How should I say? By laying off, the Japanese company recovers faster, and Japanese companies employ those people again.
Okay. Now, your brochure doesn't say so, but I will take a prep time here for my explanation before the first rebuttal speech. Okay. 今ですね、否定側の第二立論が行われました。先ほど言ったようにですね、メリットサイドですね、ケースサイドって言ってましたが、ケースというのはディベート用語ですとメリットのことを指しますので、メリットサイドに対して反論が8つ行われたということです。1つ目がですね、果たしてプランを取ってどれぐらいの企業がこれに応募するのかと、これを受け入れるのかというのは肯定側が証明してないじゃないか。2つ目にですね、肯定側が、政府が補填をすると言っているが、それではですね、もう政府が今赤字すごいんだから破産しちゃうんじゃないか。そしたら社会保障や年金どうなるんだって話ですね。3番目で、オーバーワークというのはですね、実は景気が今後退しているから起こっている一時的なものなんだという、問題が大事じゃないんじゃないかという話。4番目はですね、実際にはワークシェアリング研究の結果を見ると、失業を減らすのには役に立っているという、きちんとした結果はないんだって話ですね。証拠資料を使って言ってました。5番目と6番目は、レイオフの方が実はワークシェアリングよりもいいんだって話ですね。賃金カットよりもいいし、で、今、実際にレイオフを行っているおかげで、日本経済は、V 字型に、回復しているという証拠資料を読んでいました。で、7番目でカウンターポリシーと言ってましたが、否定側からの対抗案を出したわけです。肯定側が、政府が企業に対してお金を補填すると言ってましたが、同じお金をそれを失業対策とかですね、実際に首を切られた人に対して行う方がいいんじゃないかということですね。そうすればレイオフが、うまくいくと。で、レイオフというのは、経済のですねが良くなったり悪くなったりするときに需要に対応できるシステムなんだという話をしていました。最後に、実はワークシェアリングというのは 実際2002年にいくつかの会社が行った時には非正規雇用を増やしてしまったと。でそれは実際には彼らの生活にとって良くないものであるという話でした。これからですね、否定側の第一反駁、リバタリのピリオドに移りますが、リバタリのピリオドでは、否定側がですね、デメリットに対して再反論するということになると思われます。Okay, I'd like to welcome the first negative rebuttal speech. 3 minutes, please.
Okay, at the first negative constructive speech, we call it 1NC. Point A, reason 1. We argue that plan increased labor cost. At this point, the affirmatives have refuted that increased cost is covered by government subsidy. However, the government subsidy cannot cover all increased costs because hiring new employee requires additional costs. For example, besides social welfare premium, they need desks, chairs, computers, even utility bills will increase. Therefore, the government subsidy cannot cover all increased costs, and labor costs must increase. Next, the same YNC, point A, reason 2, we argue that plan decreased workers' morale. At this point, affirmative refuted that it's not true because the decreased wage is compensated by government subsidy. However, if that's the case, how much money the government needs? See, suppose the government subsidies $30,000, $303 per worker every month. Since there are 66 million workers in Japan, so roughly speaking, the government needs $2 trillion, $20.2 billion every month, which is $24 trillion, $247 billion a year. How can the government pay such a tremendous amount of money? It's impossible. Therefore, the government subsidy cannot only part of decreased wage, and work share must decrease morale. And since the government subsidy cannot cover all decreased costs, 5% wage cut is significant. Now Japanese labor market polarized, regular worker with considerable wage and welfare on the one hand, and part-time or temporary worker with lower wage and less or without welfare on the other. For the latter, even now, life is very tough. Even in the economic stable time, many of them are struggling to make ends meet. So even 5% wage cut can push them off from the top of the cliff. Many of them might go to personal bankruptcy, or some might even commit suicide. Therefore, 5% wage cut is significant, and morale must decrease. Next, affirmative said that plan won't decrease productivity because work sharing retain workers and their motivation. However, once work sharing was adopted, what happened? Suppose 2 workers share one work and work for 4 hours each. Then the economy recovers. What happened? Can they work for 8 hours each? That's impossible. Even if economy recovers, how can company double their production? What if this work shared by 3 people, 3 workers, or 4 workers, or more? So, work sharing must decrease morale and productivity. In a sense, work sharing is something like ineffective drug with strong side effects. Therefore, work sharing is not a good policy to be adopted. Thank you.
Okay, reflection time. 今ですね、否定側の第一反駁、第一リバタルが行われたと。先ほど市村さんが立論の方で、コンストラクティブスピーチでディスアドバンテージ、国際競争力の低下喪失というのを出しましたが、それに関する肯定側からの反論に対して再反論を行って、ディスアドバンテージ、デメリットを再構築したということになります。でいくつかですね、肯定側から反論のあった、例えば政府がですね、プランによって、会社のですね、各企業の、支出分、これを補填するから大丈夫なんて話に関しては、それはですね、そういうのを全部カバーするのは無理じゃないかという話をしてましたよね。で、実際には、そういうことができないので、人件費、労働コストというのは非常に上がってしまうんだと。あとは、モラル、士気に関してはですね、やっぱりこの 5% 賃金カットというのは非常にですね、各労働者にとって、あるいは家族にとってですね、深刻な問題なんだと。で、このおかげでですね、個人的に破産するとか、あるいは自殺してしまうとか、そういうような人たちもいるんじゃないかという話ですね。で、肯定側のプランによってやっぱり、生産性は落ちて、先ほど言ったような中小企業に対して、深刻なダメージがあるとか、 国際競争力が低下して、企業倒産が起こるとか、そういうことが起きるんだという話でした。で今の時点でですね、メリットの方に対しては先ほど上野さんが行ったメリットへのアタックが8つあったわけです。で、今ですね、市村さんが行ったデメリットへの再反論があってデメリットが、形の上で成立していると。これから肯定側の第一反駁で、メリットをですね、再反駁して守りながらディスアドバンテージ、デメリットの方も潰していくというようなですね、一つのディベートの中ではクライマックスでここが迎えるということになります。Okay, and let's welcome the first affirmative rebuttal speech, 3 minutes, please.
I think the most important part that we're going to learn from this speech is that all of the reasons we think that our case is a good idea still stand, including that right now, if we do not do anything, 1.7 million people will be laid off. That increases the stress level of an already 8 million people who are overworked right now, which could lead to multiple suicides and a significant decrease in Japan's GDP. If we do not do anything, this will occur. Now you're left to decide, is the plan better or the counter plan better? But I think you're going to see that the counter plan, or the plan, is much more strategic. So, on our plan, they argue that layoffs are going to be good because it removes unneeded workers and that the layoffs are leading to a Japanese recovery. Tony and I don't think that this is entirely true. Many of these workers are needed, and you can see this because so many people are getting more and more overworked. And as they're more overworked, their stress level increases and it's much harder on them. But also, Tony and I don't think that the Japanese economy can be considered recovered when there are 1.7 million people who are unemployed within the next couple of months. We think that's probably bad. Then, they say that there's no proof that it's actually going to work. But we have evidence that suggests that it worked in Germany and it worked in Switzerland, and this has led to recovery. They say that there's no proof that companies will accept it, but it seems like in cross-examination, they agreed with us that since companies have already adopted it, and many leaders, including the leader of the JDA, has said that they're excited about it, that this will occur. I would imagine in their next speech, they're going to come up and they're going to say that it's going to cost way too much money, that we'll never be able to do this, and that Japan is going to be in a lot of danger. However, I think we have two arguments against this. The very first is that if you agree with the evidence by Professor Higuchi, which says that it's going to increase the amount of jobs by 2.15 million, then all of those new jobs will generate revenue, which will pay the government to help adopt this plan. But also, if they don't have to pay all of this unemployment and Social Security from 1.7 people laid off, then they're going to have more money with that. When you look at the counter plan, I think you're going to see that it's going to cost much more money to pay for the entire livelihoods of 1.7 million people than help subsidize a decrease of the revenue by 5% in these payrolls. But also, we think companies are going to go bankrupt if they have to lay off their workers, and people will individually go bankrupt without their jobs, which is going to increase suicide. At the end of the day, I think you just prefer our plan because it's cheaper than the counter plan, it's going to increase productivity, it's going to increase morale, and it's going to make Japanese businesses more competitive. Thank you.
Okay, preparation time for 1 minute. 今ですね、最初にメリットの方にいくつか反応しながら、最後にですね、デメリットの方を、反応していた感じでしたね。いくつか、ありましたけども、実際にレイオフの方が良くて日本の経済が良くなるなんて考えられないじゃないかという話ですね。実際に肯定側は最初の時点でですね、オーバーワークしてるって言ってるし、あとは、否定側が、経済回復するなんて言ってるけれども、もともと肯定側がですね、このままいくと、この数ヶ月で170万人の人が失業の危機にあるんだという証明してるじゃないかという話してましたよね。で、実際に企業が受け入れるかどうか、プランを受け入れるかどうかなんかに関しても、実際にもうやってる企業もあるし、やりたいと言ってるのも質疑の中で明らかになったじゃないか。で、肯定側のプランを取ればですね、新たに200万人以上の雇用が生まれるんだ。で、カウンタープランで実際に失業者にお金をあげた方がいいんじゃないかなって話があったけれども、その方がプランなんかにも全然お金がかかってしまって良くないんじゃないかという話をしていた。で、肯定側のプランを取ればですね、士気も上がってですね、実際に国際競争力、これデメリットですけども、これなんかもですね、逆に肯定側のプランによって生産性が上がるんだなんて話をしていました。 これからあと2つで最終的なスピーチになるわけです。最終スピーチですから、肯定側否定側双方ですね、自分たちがなぜ相手よりも優れているのかと、自分たちのシステムがですね、を説明していくということになっております。Okay, then first of all, I'd like to welcome the last rebuttal by the negative side. 3 minutes, please.
Well, there are two policies in this round. First is the work sharing, introduction of work sharing, which is aimed to increase or share the works there right now. On the other hand, the layoffs that the negative supports will increase the new jobs through the quick recovery of Japanese economy. And this is already happening right now because, well, as I proved in the second negative constructive speech, well, my partner's argument on disadvantage, work sharing rather decreases productivity generally. And if the work sharing is introduced, because of the reduction of productivity, the Japanese economy, which is recovering right now, will lose speed to recover, or rather decrease, rather worsens. Because reduction of productivity, they will lose in competition. This is not denied in this round. About the case side, they said that 1.7 million layoffs already now. Well, this is correct, but it will disappear in a few months or so because Japanese companies are already recovering and they will have to increase employment to meet the demand. And the overwork argument, it is just short time. And if we increase the employment, this problem will disappear. And on the work sharing has no impact on employment. This argument is not denied basically. So please remind that work sharing does not have effect on increasing employment or decreasing unemployment. And on counter policy argument, they said that well, that will need much more money. But if the recovery, the Japanese economy recovers sooner, the pay we need is less, and that means, and the layoff policy is more enables companies to move quicker than work sharing. This money which the government needs will less than the affirmative plan. And the last argument I argued in turnaround that work sharing rather makes workers' life unstable was not refuted, I think. Especially in Japan, Japanese companies rather think that work sharing is a need to decrease regular workers. So this will increase unstable workers. That's why we strongly call for rejection. Thank you.
Okay, preparation time. 今否定側の最終スピーチが終わったわけですね。なかなか時間の関係で私もですね、ちょっと日本語でしかちょっと解説できませんでしたが、なかなか無理でしたけれども、最終スピーチですので、ポリシーのですね、ちょっと比べ合いをしていた、システムの比べ合いをしていたということですよね。でディベートを見る際にはですね、今回のように果たしてワークシェアリングが経済にとっていいのか悪いのかということが、もちろんね、大きな争点になっておりましたが、両方の意見というのはもちろんあるわけですね。でその時に、どちらの議論の方がより可能性があるかと、蓋然性が高いかということは、スピーチを聞いただけじゃなくてですね、その、議論と議論の、理由付けですよね。そこのところを私たちが判断して、どちらが勝ったかというのをジャッジが決めるわけです。でそのためにですね、この試合の中でも肯定側からも否定側からもですね、エビデンス、証拠資料がですね、引用されていたと。いろいろ証拠資料が引用されてましたけども、それもですね、自分たちの主張の、スペリティ、優位性を高めるために使っていたと。そういうところをですね、私たち、専門的なジャッジはですね、よく吟味した上で、どちらの方が正しいかということを全体的に判断して、ディシジョンを出すというような形になっております。これから肯定側のですね、この試合の最後のスピーチを迎えることになります。 どのような理由付けをするかなんてですね、特に注意しながらお聞きいただければと思います。Okay, let's welcome the very last speech of this debate round. And Tony, please.
Thank you very much. I'd like to start by saying it might be true that the Japanese economy is turning around, but it's not because of layoffs. In fact, it is because of work sharing. Toyota, Mazda, Toshiba, Fujitsu, and Nissan are just some of the Japanese companies that are implementing work sharing that is turning this thing around. Because layoffs hurt productivity. If you could be laid off at any moment, you're worried, you're stressed, you're not focused on your job. And when you are laid off, morale of everyone around you in the company decreases because they've just lost a friend, they've just lost a coworker, and the impact of being laid off is tremendously traumatic for families, causes people to go bankrupt, and it causes immense social stress on the society. And so we disagree that layoffs are the way to go. In fact, they are the cause of the problem, not the solution. The solution that the affirmative presents is work sharing. Because, first let's take a look at the cost. Work sharing, admittedly, will cost some money, but it will also increase jobs. And so when you increase employment, you decrease the amount of money that governments have to pay out in Social Security and unemployment benefits. But let's look at the negatives plan, where you lay off people and you have the government pay for them to live, which means that the government will have to pay for their severance packages, the government will have to pay 1.7 million people's unemployment benefits, and that's on top of the people that are already unemployed right now. And they will also, even if it's just for a couple of months, as the negative optimistically predicts, that is still way more money than the amount of money that work sharing will cost. And work sharing will also increase jobs, not lay people off. Now, a couple of things that the negative said is that work sharing makes workers' lives uncomfortable. But our evidence shows that workers are working 60 to 80 hours a week, and that their lives, in order to compensate for the other people being laid off, are stressed, are overworked, and are already uncomfortable. Work sharing can only alleviate some of that burden and help Japan become more competitive by allowing for new education programs, allowing for new training programs, and that is the key to recovery, to the strength of Japanese businesses, especially in high-tech economies, is that work sharing strengthens Japanese companies, and when Japanese companies are strong, the government is strong, and the nation is strong. And so you don't become stronger by laying off Japanese workers. You become stronger by employing more Japanese workers and strengthening the companies that they work for. Thank you very much.
Thank you, debaters. Thank you for the good round. And now, I would like to welcome some comments from Professor Ayano. Could you put the microphone there?
Okay, I think we saw a very good debate here today, and I'd like to start by asking the audience a question. Since most of you are new to debating, how many of you heard an argument in the debate that you thought should come up when you heard the topic? You can raise your hand. I won't call on you, it's okay. I know I'm a teacher, but I won't push up. Nobody? How many of you thought of something that should have been said that was not said in the debate? Anyone? And I think whether you watch it or whether it's your first time watching a debate or not, debate is merely something that is more formal exercise of what we already do. Every day we have arguments. We have arguments with people in our family, arguments with people at work, arguments with people in the street. It's a very natural human process. They might not be enjoyable all the time, but there's something that we do as human beings. And I think debate is a more refined or more structured way of doing that. And I think what we saw is a very good example today of what a debate looks like when it's very well structured and very well directed. There's a couple of things that you might not be familiar with of what the debaters were doing, and I thought I might point that out. One of the things is that affirmative side of the debate has a very important burden. They have to show you that what's happening right now in the country is harmful and that a change must be made. And if they don't prove that it's hurting right now, then we would stay with what we're already doing. This is what the negative is attempting to do, is to say, in the status quo, things are okay. Right? And the status quo is just the Latin for as things are right now. It's sort of debater's slang. Right? So the present system is what the negative defends. And the affirmative usually says we need to change that. I think in this debate we saw that happening at the beginning, of saying, well, if this change comes, it will cause more problems than we have now, or there's a better way of fixing the problems. That's what we heard from the second speaker with the idea of layoffs are actually better than work sharing. So this is a very common thing. This is the way we make decisions all the time when people try to persuade us to do something. You're going to keep doing things the way you like to do them. You're going to keep buying the same product at the store unless you're convinced by a commercial or by a friend that a different product is what you should buy. You're going to say, no, I don't think so. Tell me more. No, that's not good enough. And that's exactly the way the debate goes. So you might have seen some of that and be able to relate that to your daily life. The second thing I think about watching a debate for the first time that's difficult is trying to remain objective. And I think that's one of the important reasons why you should do debate. And I think staying objective is difficult to do. You might be thinking, wow, how can they say these things? And you're watching the debate, you might be leaning one way, you're like, wow, that was a very good speech. The next speaker gets up, you're like, wow, I'm going the other way. That's a very good speech too. And you kind of go back and forth like tennis, right? You watch a tennis match, very much like this, right? Unless you have good seats. I usually don't have very good seats. But it's very much like this, and you're like, wow, how can they hit the ball so fast? It's like, that person hit it harder, that person hit it harder. And that's what you saw in this debate. And I thought a lot of this exchange was going on, especially about the condition of the Japanese economy. Right? I think that was a point where we had a lot of that exchange. And then another point where we had a lot of this exchange was on whether or not the companies are actually going to do work sharing or not. And we had a lot of that back and forth. Now this back and forth is something you learn when you get into debate. It's called clash. And that's what we call it in the US, clash, which is the points where the sides disagree. And it's very, very good in debate to have a high level of disagreement and a high level of clash. When you have arguments in your personal life, it might be good to compromise. It might be good to agree, say, oh, well, that's all right. And sometimes in debate it's good too. But debate is for the audience, right? It's for you to help you think through this issue and come to a better decision about what's good for the country, what's good for the government, what's good for people. So the more clash there is in a debate, the better it is for you to figure out the issue. And that's why public debates are so good. And when you're participating in the debate, I don't know what everyone's personal feelings are on work sharing, but I would assume that it doesn't come up, right? They take the side that they're assigned and they do it. And I think we saw a very good example of them doing that. And you actually probably think they believe what they're talking about. Might not be true, right? They might have a different opinion. But you embody that position. You take that position on as your own in order to practice that idea. And so finally, I think the other thing that might surprise you by watching the debate is how organized it is, right? Normally when we argue with people, it can go in circles, right? You can find yourself talking about the same thing several times in a row. It gets very frustrating. You want to stop, right? And so debate is important because it'll teach you that kind of organizational process, which I think is good here. So you can see them saying, subpoint A, part 1. This might be intimidating, but it's something that they do not do naturally, right? It's something they learned from debating. So don't think that this is sort of the end result. They're all very talented debaters, but this is something that you could do. And when you start off, it might be very challenging, frustrating, but it's something that you could easily do. If you think that you could participate in something like this, I think you're on the right track, because this is something they learned from this today. They're not at the end of the game, they're still in the middle of the game. Right? So every time you debate, you improve your skill. Right? Every step, step by step. Right? So I thought that this was a very good example debate, and I thought there was good clash on those issues. And I think that if you were thinking, ooh, that's an idea I had, or if you thought, they really should have talked about this, if that came to mind, then you're in very good shape to participate in this yourself. Right? So, those are my comments. I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. Okay, and the first part of this event is now over, and now it's 4:55, and I'd like to have 10 minutes break before the lecture, so stay tuned.